There's a player on the Miami Dolphins roster that we have not talked about enough, and we need to start talking about this guy as someone who can make an impact on this team in 24-25. That's him right there, and his name is Jody Fortson. Before we get into Jody Fortson, we need to get there today. We are 39 subscribers away from 57K, and if we don't get to 57,000 subscribers today, I may end up just deleting the channel. We're so dang close. I want to get there. Join us in some cool stats, and if you will, we would be the 7th channel in chat sports history to get to 57K. So let's join the 57K club today by hitting that sub button. Dolphins fans, I'm counting on you. All right, let's start talking about the tight end who could be an impact player for Miami this upcoming year. And I want to do some background information on him first. Miami did sign him to a one-year deal back in March after he spent the first 4 or 5 seasons in the NFL as a Kansas City Chief. He is 28 years old. He went to Valdosta State College, which I believe is not a Division I school. He was an undrafted free agent in 2019, played for the Chiefs from 2019 to 2023, and then technically is a 3-time Super Bowl champion because unfortunately those fucking Chiefs have won 3 times in the last 4 or 5 seasons. Fortson has been someone that has proved to be at least a little bit of a threat on opposing defenses in the past. Has only played in 19 career games over those 4 or 5 seasons, has missed an entire year in 2023 due to injury, but has also just not seen the field that much due to Travis Kelce and Blake Bell and other tight ends in Kansas City getting the workload. But he has had 4 touchdowns in 19 career games and had 14 catches, 155 yards. Like, the numbers that he's put up in Kansas City over those 19 games honestly are pretty respectable. The reason why I think Jody Fortson can be an impact player for Miami, though, this upcoming season is because he's already shown his ability to do so in Miami Dolphins minicamp, Miami Dolphins OTAs. Fortson has been the second best tight end without a question. Jonnu Smith, the free agent signing from Atlanta, has been great, but Fortson has just showed his 6'4" frame that has a wide catch radius, making plays all over the field, whether it be in the red zone, whether it be in 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, whatever you want to call it. Jody Fortson has been the second best tight end on this roster over the course of the offseason. And if he puts together a good training camp in July and preseason in August, Fortson will have a role for the Dolphins in 24-25. We're going to talk more about Jody Fortson and what his role with this Dolphins team could be, but I want to know first, and I want you to be honest. We've talked about Fortson in the past, but did you know who Jody Fortson was? Listen, no hard feelings to Jody, just isn't the biggest named player in the NFL. Let me know if you knew who he was prior to this video. All right, ESPN's Marcel, who covers the Dolphins, wanted to shed some light on Jody Forson, and I wanted to share what he said. He said that the Dolphins signed Jonnu Smith to provide a receiving threat at tight end, but Fortson has stood out during spring practices. He has a wide catch radius and has flashed the ability to pick up yardage after the catch. The former Kansas City Chiefs tight end has a challenging road to a meaningful workload, considering Jonnu Smith and Durham Smythe's presence on this roster and the plethora of pass catchers in the Dolphins' offense. But the early returns on Fortson say he will be able to contribute when called upon, however frequently that might be. And he said that it would be challenging to find a lot of workload for Jody Fortson. I actually do agree with that sentiment, but I still do project him to make the 53-man roster just due to how successful he has been in June and July for the Miami Dolphins. I think Fortson is someone that Mike McDaniel, Chris Grier will come together and agree on as someone that can make and be beneficial to this roster this upcoming season. So I would project him to make the 53-man, which now in the second half of the video, we're going to talk about what he can do on the field for Miami, as well as the history of tight ends for the Miami Dolphins under Mike McDaniel. But I got to show some love to a new sponsor here. That is True Nutrition, my favorite new sponsor. Shout out to them for coming aboard here at Dolphins Today. Unlike most supplement brands that focus on marketing a product that is manufactured elsewhere, True Nutrition manufactures its own products while marketing takes a back seat. True Nutrition was formed to provide protein powders and supplements with absolutely no fillers, no additives, no gluten, and most importantly, no BS. Not only has True Nutrition completely changed the protein powder game, they also have a wide range of pure supplements, from their creatine monohydrate powder to their essential amino acids. You can have the peace of mind that all their products have the highest quality ingredients possible. True Nutrition's customized protein powder was so popular that they also released the ability to customize your own greens and oatmeal too. You can start your morning off with exactly the nutrition and taste you're looking for. I mentioned the greens. I mentioned the oatmeal. You can use their protein powder and supplements in a wide variety of different ways. They've got great flavors as well. We have showcased the chocolate fudge brownie one over the past couple of shows. We have also showed the chocolate mint that I've had. But I also have a new flavor as well in the form of True Flavor French Vanilla. I just went nuts. I have the almost every type of protein powder you can have. Like, here's the True Flavor French Vanilla right here. I love the flavors. I do. It tastes great. I add them with milk. I add them with water. You can get a nice little protein shake. You can mix it with yogurt as well, which is something I do often. I just use it in a wide variety of ways, and it helps me stay healthy, and I love the ability to create your own, which I displayed earlier in the show. So for a limited time, our listeners get 15% off our entire order, or your entire order, when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 15% off your order at TrueNutrition.com with promo code CHAT. Take the guesswork out of nutrition with True Nutrition. That link and promo code is in the description and comments of today's video. All right, this is where I project the Miami Dolphins depth chart right now. Jonnu Smith is tight end 1. Durham Smythe still hangs in there at tight end 2. And I have upgraded Jody Fortson to tight end 3. Previously, it was Julian Hill, as he was the tight end 2 for Miami last year for most of the season. But I have him as someone on the outside looking in terms of this Dolphins 53-man roster because of how well Fortson has performed throughout this summer. And I did want to bring this up too because I think it's a fascinating thing to look at, back to some chat stats, if you will. Mike McDaniel's entering his 3rd season as Dolphins head coach. So I think it's important to see where he values the tight end position. And it's kind of weird. Now, obviously, roster construction can change throughout the year, but at the initial 53-man roster, so at the end of training camp, at the end of preseason, late August into September, where did the Dolphins have their tight end numbers? Well, in 2023, they only had 2. They only had Durham Smythe and Julian Hill kept on the initial 53-man roster. In 2022, though, they had 5. They kept 5 tight ends on the initial 53-man. That's kind of wild. So maybe they're going to meet somewhere in the middle here and keep 3, which is where I project Jonnu Smith, Durham Smythe, and Jody Fortson to come into play. But now let's move into what Jody Fortson could do for this team this season. I think it's also important to look at how Mike McDaniel has used the tight ends over his Dolphins tenure. Well, in 2023, they just simply weren't used that much. They combined for no touchdowns. They only combined for about 450 yards and only combined for about 41 catches on 52 targets. The tight ends were just simply not used last year. Now, maybe that's because Durham Smythe and Julian Hill aren't the best receiving tight ends. That is very possible. But you can also look at the way the Dolphins use their offense. They use their running backs and wide receivers in the passing game a lot more. In the first year under Mike McDaniel, 2022, when the Dolphins still had Mike Gesicki, nothing really changed. Like, you got more production out of your tight end too, because Durham Smythe is just simply better than Julian Hill. But the lead tight end, that was Gesicki in 22 and Smythe in 23, both got around 360 yards on 32 receptions. So it is very clear to me that the lead tight end in a Mike McDaniel offense is going to hover around 48 to 50 targets, 32 to 35 receptions, and 360 to 400 yards. Now, I will give Gesicki credit. He's a better red zone threat than Smythe is, and he did have 5 touchdowns in 2022. But it was clear, right? The Dolphins just simply don't use the tight end a lot with Mike McDaniel as head coach and offensive play caller. That's something that Dolphins fans, you guys have pointed out to me in the comment section. And it's pretty evident based off the statistics and how many people Mike McDaniel kept on this Dolphins roster that maybe he just doesn't value the tight end position that much. But I will say this. I do expect the tight ends to be used more this year, whether it be more of a focal point from Mike McDaniel or just having more talent that Tua feels comfortable throwing to in the middle of the field and on checkdowns. I do think the Dolphins tight ends will see more action this upcoming year, and I want to ask you that same question. Predict it for me down below. Will the Dolphins use the tight ends more or less in 2024? Type M for more, type L for less. I guess it's a subjective thing to analyze and come back to see if we were right or not, but I think we would know just based off the eye test if the tight ends were used more or not. So what is going to be Jody Fortson's role? If he does make the 53-man roster, which I project, after looking at the past and Mike McDaniel offenses, where will Fortson be used? I honestly believe that Fortson will not see a lot of snaps in between the 20s. That will basically be given to Smythe because he's a better blocking tight end, and Jonnu Smith is a good blocking tight end as well. And Jonnu Smith, like those two are going to dominate in between the 20s. But then once you get inside the red zone, that's where Jody Fortson comes into play because he is 6'4". He has a wide catch radius and could cause a lot of mismatches on linebackers and safeties while in the red zone. So if I had to project the tight end production for 2024 from this Miami Dolphins team based off the past, this is where I'm going. And the numbers aren't gaudy. I do think Jonnu Smith is much better than Mike Gesicki was and Durham Smythe was last season. So I do expect him to have a better season as the lead tight end in this room. Projected 40 catches, 420 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think Smythe's still going to hover around that 12 catches, 109 receiving yards. Looking at what the tight end twos have done in this offense over the past 2 seasons, that feels right. But I do think Fortson might be the tight end that catches the most touchdowns because he's bigger than Jonnu Smith. And he can just be, to take this over to the basketball world, he could just be a center that boxes out and grabs the rebound coming up on the high point, the ball that Tua throws him. So I think Fortson will be used in the red zone, and he might be their main red zone threat because we know OBJ is barely 6 feet tall, if he even is 6 feet tall. He's like 5'11". Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle aren't that big. Like, Jody Fortson is their big body target that I could see them using quite a bit inside the 20s, specifically inside the 10 and 5-yard line. So that's kind of how I view Fortson's role. Think he'll be on this team, he'll be on this 53-man roster, but he's going to be a red zone specialist that comes out and potentially splits out wide with Jonnu Smith, Durham Smythe inside when they're at the 4 or 5-yard line. That's how I see Fortson, and honestly, I didn't ask this question, but I predicted 3 touchdowns for Jody. I think that's a good line, 2.5, more or less. You guys can let me know down below. But make sure you are subscribed because we're talking Dolphins football, whether it be news, rumors, or just talking about a player like Jody Fortson. Who else out there is talking about a tight end 3 for 8 to 10 minutes, breaking down how they can play football? I'm telling you, no one else is doing it. So hit that sub button and join us, and let's get 57K on today's video. See you with another one tomorrow. Go Vince.